Hi everyone and welcome back. Okay, so today it's going to be a pencil and wash. I'm going to actually make the video in two parts. So this first part is just going to actually be the graphite drawing part of it. This is the scene that I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be drawing this out for you in today's video. I think it's going to work quite nice for a pencil and wash. So yeah, so I used Bockingford A4 cold pressed £140 paper. It's got a really nice surface on it for pencil and wash. You get some nice foliage techniques on it, and it just seems to work well for pencil and wash, so I'm going to be using that today. I didn't use that many pencils, funnily enough. I actually used the Mars Lumograph HB pencil and one of my favourite all-time mechanical pencils, the Graph Gear 1000. Now that's got a 2B lead in there, and the Pentel leads are quite dark, so it's really the equivalent of, you know, 4B lead or maybe even a 6B lead, you know, with your regular graphite pencils. So that was the pencils that I used. I used a selection of erasers. I used the Derwent battery eraser, the Derwent eraser pen, and the Tombow Mono fine point eraser. And I should have used the Derwent soft art eraser. Now what happened was, I used the Tombow Mono eraser to erase out the grid lines on the watercolor paper, and it left some marks there which kind of picked up a little bit with the watercolor. Not too sure if it was the fault of the eraser itself, because for those of you that have got these, you'll know about these refills. They have this plastic thing, that's the technical word for it, I don't know what it's called, this plastic pole that's kind of stuck into the eraser there, and it actually goes into the eraser a little bit. And I was on the last little bit of eraser, so I'm not sure if I'd actually gone through the eraser and I was pressing on the paper with this plastic piece, but it left a few marks on the paper, so it could have been the eraser itself, it could have been the plastic bit, not too sure. But it's a chance you know, it's a chance you don't want to take. I wouldn't risk it. I'd definitely use the Derwent soft eraser. It's nice and soft and it shouldn't damage the paper as long as you don't press too hard. Or alternatively, you could use your kneadable erasers, blue tack, whatever, as long as you can erase the lines nice and cleanly. Used a selection of blending stumps as well, and of course the dust brush. And I also used, let me just get it, I didn't get it ready, there we go, I also used a set square as well. All these products obviously I use and recommend and enjoy using, so I'm going to link all of them in the description below with product links, so you can go and check them out if you want to. Okay, so let's get busy. So I'm starting out with an HB pencil to get the line drawing in, and as you can see I'm working with a grid method, so I can keep everything nice and accurate. Now this isn't going to be a how-to video or anything like that, although you may get some tips and techniques from it and hopefully some inspiration, but there will be some videos to accompany this over on my Patreon channel. I think there's 7 or possibly 8 videos over there, and they're full of instruction on how to draw this, you know, how to prepare this drawing for the pencil and wash technique. And as always, I'll put a link in the description below to my Patreon, and also in the end screen cards as well, so it'd be great to see you over there. Okay, so back to the drawing then. It's quite difficult actually to draw on the Bockingford cold pressed paper. I mean, I've drew pictures on worse than this. I mean, I've used the Bockingford extra rough paper, and that's, you know, particularly hard to get straight lines on and fine detail. But there's a lot of fine detail in this one, and seeing as I'm working on a small scale like A4, it can be quite difficult to actually get, you know, fine detail and fine lines. So now I'm actually using a pencil which I didn't actually mention at the start. This is the Pentel P200 range. It's the 0.3 and it's got an HB lead in it, and I decided to use that to get in all the little tight corners of the windows, and it really does help to keep your accuracy, you know, when you're drawing on watercolour paper. The very fine lead seems to sort of cut into the paper a little bit, but that's okay. You know, accuracy is very important, you know, with drawings like this, and the fact that we're going over it with watercolour anyway, it'll all sort of, you know, merge in together, and it, you know, the little cuts in, well, they're not cuts, it's more of an embossed line that you get with the pentole leads on watercolour paper, so it won't really make much of a difference, but it certainly will help with your accuracy. You may also find a set square or a ruler very helpful for drawings like this as well, because as I mentioned before, it's quite difficult to actually draw completely straight lines, you know, and fine detail on highly textured paper. I mean, the Bockingford paper is fantastic for watercolour, you know, and that's where it's going to come into its own. So at the drawing stage, you're always going to be fighting with the paper just a little bit, you know, to get the accuracy and the detail in there, but once that's done, you know, you're kind of glad that you've persevered and you've done it on textured watercolour paper, because the washes will go over it really nicely, and the graphite will stay in the grain of the paper and won't get lifted up into the washes, and you'll get a nice clean watercolour. So once we've actually finished with the line drawing and the fine detail, moving on to the foliage, this is where the paper can actually help you again, because the texture of the paper is really suited, you know, to getting nice foliage techniques, you know, nice trees and leaves, things like that. You know, the texture really does help you out with this. It can really cut down the amount of time you need to actually spend, you know, drawing the foliage. So you know, it's not all bad. It's you know, it's just mainly the detail and the line drawing where it's pretty difficult, but the rest of it, you know, it's a blessing. So I mean, I actually enjoy working on watercolour paper. You know, I like the texture of it. I like to use it to my advantage. You can get some really nice effects with it. And I always seem to get asked the same question quite often. Doesn't the graphite, you know, contaminate the watercolour washes? Well, no, not really. Not really. I've actually made a video about that in the past. I'll link that in the description below as well, because it does actually answer a lot of questions about the pencil and wash technique. So yeah, look for that link in the description there, and hopefully that'll answer all of your questions. So we're just about there now at the end of the drawing. Just got the foliage to put in on the right hand side once we've put the fences in. And again, you know, the texture is really helping me at this stage, you know, to get that nice foliage effect. I'm not exactly sure where this place is actually, so if anybody out there watching this knows where this is, I'd love you to leave a comment and let me know, because I haven't a clue where it is. It was one of those sort of royalty free photos that, you know, often don't say where the place is, but wherever it is, it's a really nice scene, and it was a nice photo whoever took it. So hopefully I can do it justice with a nice painting. This video will obviously be uploaded before the actual painting one, but as soon as I've uploaded the painting version of this, I'll put a link in the description here as well, so you can just click on that and get straight to part 2, or I'll put something in the end cards. Either way, you know, you'll be able to watch part 2. So we're just about at the end of the drawing now. I'm just kind of finishing the last area of trees off, a few final details. Generally, you know, you go for a higher contrast with the pencil and wash, less mid-tones and more lights, more darks, and the watercolour acts as your mid-tone. So there's no need for me to actually do, you know, a completely finished, polished drawing here. You know, I've omitted a lot of the mid-tones and just mainly concentrated on the, you know, the darker tones and leaving lots of white paper showing as well, so that the watercolor, you know, will sit nicely on top of that. But still, you know, I am including a little bit of shade on the buildings, a little bit of mid-tone here and there, but not too much of it, just a little bit, just enough just to mark out where the shadows fall, and I'll be able to see that through the glazes of paint, and it'll make the process easier for me. So there's a finished drawing. I hope you enjoyed that, and I hope you pop along to Patreon as well. It would be great to see you over there, and also check out part 2 as soon as that's uploaded. Thanks very much for viewing, and I'll see you next time. Take care everybody, bye for now.